Hi, everybody. Welcome to yet another Preparation Tech interview. Today, I'm really happy to be talking with Rene Yao in San Francisco. She is the Global AI Healthcare Startups Product Manager and Business Lead for NVIDIA, a fast company named NVIDIA one of the most innovative companies in 2017. They specialize in developing these graphics processing units, which basically allow these amazing environments, whether it's for gaming, whether it's for healthcare, or even for like driving. But I bet you Rene can actually describe it much better. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Rene. Welcome. Tell us what you do. What exactly does a product manager and business development lead person do?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me here today. In a nutshell, for my role specifically, I look after 900 AI healthcare startups globally, and they range from medical imaging, medical instruments, genomics, drug discovery, and medical analytics. And in that field, a lot of them actually develop applications on top of what we called an application framework, and we gave it a name called NVIDIA Clara. And essentially, as a product manager, is to define features and also articulate user pain points and be able to share with engineers what to build, and also communicate with the various stakeholders on what's needed to be done by when to best enable this entire field forward. So that's kind of what I do in a nutshell. It's very fun every single day.
Okay, so you're kind of like the in-between person. You've got your foot in the company, but you also have your foot with your clients, and you're trying to make sure that NVIDIA's products kind of match what the clients need and what you should be developing to really help them.
Yes, absolutely. That's a very good summary. And if you think of a product manager's role, essentially it's a sweet spot in between among like the three circle, and you can think of like a huge Venn diagram in terms of there's communication, there's the engineering, there's design, and product managers really sitting in the middle to be able to articulate what the users, or in this case, either customers or partners need, and then for us from the product perspective, be able to deliver upon that promise.
Okay, so can you kind of describe for us the process? How does it work? So you've got meetings with your client and you kind of showcase the technology. What happens then?
Sure. My day-to-day is quite unique and different, I would say, yeah, every single day. There are days I would be meeting with the customers and partners to learn a little bit more about what they do, because earlier when I talked about the 5 different segments, they're all super different. And one thing is to figure out what sort of problems are they trying to solve, what are some of the technical bottlenecks that they're currently experiencing, and then trying to figure out what do we have in our toolbox that we can potentially offer them. So there are days that we call it the user discovery meetings. And then there will be days where maybe I will be, well, right now during the COVID timeframe, we'll be virtually at home doing a lot of webinars and sharing with them what our products are like, and some of the benefits and value proposition and use cases that we potentially can help with these customers. And then there are a lot of internal meetings as well to align some of the expectations and objectives. So you will talk to either a marketing team on how do you promote this kind of product, or you will be talking to executive team to say why your product needs X, Y, and Z budget, or need to go end of life because our new product is coming out, or how do you position your own product among some of the other products in the ecosystem to best articulate the values.
Okay, so what kind of background do you need? Do you have a background in technology, or did you kind of learn on the job?
I graduated from UC Berkeley with a business economics and IT focus. So I wouldn't consider myself as a technical engineer, but I did pick up coding classes after graduation to continue advance in my career. So I would say there's definitely a lot of things related to continuous education on the job to learn what's needed to advance my career.
And you said it, continuous education. It doesn't stop when you get your degree. You got to keep on updating your
Yes,
skills. So take us back now. I'm going to ask you more of a personal question. How did Renee get to where she is? Take us back
sure.
to your childhood. What kind of child were you? What were your hobbies? What were the things you were interested in? What was school like? Were you in any clubs? What was your favorite subject? Who is Renee?
That's a good question. I would say I'm definitely one of those that want it all. So everything you mentioned, I have my feet in it. And the most important person in my life was probably my grandma. My grandma played a huge role in my life. She taught me to always stay curious and be persistent and diligent. So just one story, I guess. I was born in the U.S., born in St. Louis, Missouri. I moved back to China because of my parents' business. So in elementary school, there was a time frame where I had to move from a developing city, Chengdu, to a developed city, Shanghai. The difference is in Chengdu, they actually didn't start learning English until the third grade. And then in Shanghai, they started learning English in first grade. Ironically, I was born in US, but I didn't really learn English the proper way. So the first year in Shanghai was actually a slow grind because every single day I have to learn like 3 years of textbook every night. And I really watched my grades from 30% all the way to 100% in just an entire year. And it was such a great learning experience. And that really taught me how to learn and how to study and how to just be persistent and not give up. And I took that into a lot of my other, I guess, extracurriculum, no matter if it's finding a volunteering club, we call it the Octagon, or leading SIFE, which is another entrepreneurship club in college, to taking dance lessons outside, to volunteering teaching math for elementary school students, vice versa. So anything that you could think of, I was super curious, and I continued to advance and leverage transferable skills to help out the community in ways I could.
Mm-hmm. And then what did you study in college? You mentioned the three things, right? So when you were in
Mm-hmm.
college, were you also doing extra things to augment your studies?
Yes. In college, I had the business, economics, and IT focus. And outside of the regular curriculum, I also was part of a club, a couple clubs actually, because college, the best thing about college is figuring out what you don't want to do. So I did exactly that. I went from thinking I'm going to go pre-med to realizing I really don't like chemistry or biology, to thinking, oh, maybe I'm going to do accounting, because everyone in business school, we were so known for ABC, accounting, banking, and consulting. So I was like, okay, let's try with A, accounting. And I went to network with what we call the top four at the time. All of the executives went to all of their leadership clubs, and I even got myself an internship. I really hated balancing the spreadsheets. So I was like, okay, that is not for me. I really gave my 120% for everything I dived into. And then after that, then I was like, oh, entrepreneurship sounds pretty interesting. So I started actually finding a club and actually help out with the local communities. At the time, I was a VP of projects at our local at our club. So I was actually putting together these projects to get a whole team together to help out the local community, like the local squash team, the cafe, a couple of those. Even one of the best projects that I was on was, we call it the Feeding Forward. Essentially, it's actually help match these homeless people with excess food that was left behind at football games and things like that. So it was a pretty good project that we started at the university. And after that, then it actually led me to finding a couple of the startups during my career. For example, one of them is Simply Wardrobe, which is an online clothing store with my little sister. And I also was part of a founding team of Cuddle Buds, which is selling organic toys, to the parents who are having newborn kids who very much care about like the quality of toys. You name it. It was very, very fun. And I would say that like the entrepreneurial mindset of how do you actually deliver a product and make sure to be able to communicate with the customers is such essential skills that I use every single day in my daily job.
Wow. Let's talk about characteristics and mindset. So you're working at this super innovative company. You're constantly developing technology. You've got to keep on the cutting edge. What would you say is the mindset that you need to work in this kind of company? Not only are you working at this innovative company, but you're in Silicon Valley. So you're in really the epicenter of innovation in the US. What mindset and characteristics do you need to thrive and to really be successful?
That's a very good question. I would say besides what I already mentioned about like staying curious and be passionate about what you do, another thing that I would say is actually be aggressively patient. So there's a term called the aggregation of marginal gains. It's essentially like the 1% margin of improvement in everything you do. I would say a lot of the millennials like me or even younger generation are not very patient with progress. Especially with all of the social media, we're super tuned to instant gratification, but that marginal improvement is where the hockey stick will actually happen in the future. Every single day, that little bit of the grind that you're going through to make sure you're working on something that's tangible and measurable will eventually lead to that hockey stick of taking off in your career. One of the example that I recently heard in a podcast was from the British cyclist. Have you heard of that story? The British cyclist, essentially this coach Dave was supposed to take this team to win Tour de France, and they have not done that for many, many years. And British team was never kind of like one of the top teams to be considered. And his belief was really to be able to improve like every area related to cycling by just 1%. No matter if it's figuring out like, oh, is this pillow going to actually help with sleep quality? Or what about the weight of the tires and things like that? So they really search on that 1% improvement everywhere. And I would say the results is like very, very inspiring, because in 2012, I believe, in the Olympics, when they actually have to compete, they ended up winning about 70% of all of the medals in the cycling competition, just because of that 1% improvement on a regular basis. And yeah, I would say that almost like every single habit that you have, no matter if it's like good or bad, is the result of many small decisions over time. So I definitely keep that in mind, as like, no matter if it's just taking this one course, getting the next certification, and keep my eyes on the bigger picture, that why I'm doing this, in order to continue to improve my skill set and ability to lead the departments or organizations that I'm in.
Great. Question for you. Inclusion and diversity. What has been your experience? Because you are in, again, high tech, and you're a woman. And I can imagine that a lot of your colleagues are of the male persuasion. So tell us a bit about your experience of working in like deep tech, and is your company inclusive? Are they promoting this? Do you have a lot of female and people of color who are your colleagues? Tell us a bit about that.
Yes, absolutely. I would say our company is very inclusive. I'm also very lucky throughout my entire career. I've always been in a company that's inclusive of no matter if it's sex or race or different religion, you name it. And no matter if it's like my current boss, who is a woman, or my direct technical counterpart solution architect, who is a person of color. And honestly, even when I'm currently saying it, I realize none of that really matter as much in my day-to-day work, because it's your ability, it's your passion that you put into the work. And we all pull in the weight that we needed to make sure our company and our customers are successful. And early on in my career, no matter if it's being asked to join a meeting to develop my skill set or to lead, being part of a cross functional development meetings to be able to have my voice heard. Yes, of course, there are times that I need to be assertive and ask for the opportunities to get into the door, but I would say like overall, it's a very, very pleasant experience. I'm also very passionate in the women in tech community, no matter if it's inside of our organization, we have a women in tech org, or the women in big data community that's outside that has more than 5,000 some members. And I continue to be a huge advocate of being a woman in tech.
Great. Tell us about the roles that you interact with. So are you working with programmers and like data scientists, or are you working for designers, artists? Like, just maybe tell us a bit about the different roles.
Yeah, sure thing. So I would say internally, I earlier mentioned a lot of them already, like for example, the engineers, no matter if it's different product managers across the department or marketing team or executive team. And outside of my organization, I need to talk to a lot of the customers, the partners, and even within partners is a very complex ecosystem. Some of them are software partners, some of them are hardware partners, some of them are OEM partners that essentially take some of our core GPUs, graphic processing unit, and build them into a bigger system, or even some of the go-to-market partners. What that means is like they resell some of our products and things like that. Every single organizations play their own parts and their own roles and to help us advance our technology stack and offerings. On top of that, I'm actually also, like I mentioned, I was very passionate in this Women in Tech organization. And in there, I actually created what we call the AI at NVIDIA. So it started last year, and it's been more than a year now. We now started officially launched this month, actually called the AI at NVIDIA version 2.0. And learning from last year's experience where we started like the 10 different AI projects across our departments, trying to find different innovative solutions to make NVIDIA a more effective place and to solve our internal needs. So from that perspective, in terms of the different roles that I was associated with, there's of course the Women in Tech Leadership Organization. There are people from supply chain, from the robotics team, from program managers, from product managers, from just you name it. It's a whole wide variety of people that come together with the same passion, want to deliver projects to people in need.
Right. What about the creative side? Do you interact with a lot of artists, designers? I know you guys do a lot with game design companies, game development companies, because I think a lot of kids and a lot of, I guess, their parents, teachers, and school counselors, they see a lot of kids that are creative. They like the arts, they like design. And is there a place for a person who has these kind of interests in a company like NVIDIA?
Yes, absolutely. NVIDIA is a very interesting company because we started off with these graphic processing units where the gamers love to use our graphics processing unit to play games, right? And of course, then after that, being in there for 30 some years, throughout the process, there are some professional visualization folks, we call it. They definitely use our GPUs to be able to do VR, be able to create like beautiful graphics and things like that. And then after that, then we took all of the learnings and experience into what we call the enterprise space. So we have a lot of GPUs in the data center, and this is where kind of my healthcare role plays in. And no matter if it's like the consumer side or the enterprise side, both sides, we have a lot of creative people within those different organizations. So of course, like I think designing like any of the Disney films, that's a pretty straightforward. A lot of them uses like GPUs, right? That's very much creative related. On the enterprise side, a lot of people don't know is no matter like if it's a beautiful rendered image of a server, that actually requires a lot of creative brain power behind it as well. And having a creative vision of how should you make a server sexy, right? Who would think something like sitting in a data center that's collecting dust could potentially be sexy? But I would say that take a look at our recent product launch video. A video is a creative asset. And even as a product manager, I actually have to work with creative team a lot, because you need to stand up a landing page or create a solution brief or a infographic or a little Instagram video. All of that, besides me communicating what do I really need or what does the customer need, it all comes from the creative team, because they have to put my words into graphic, visual ways to be able to articulate to the audience exactly what they're looking at. So absolutely, creative skill set is very, very important. And even no matter if it's just from the design perspective, right? Even just you think it's like art and drawing, but also how do you design a product? Should the product have gold bezel around it, or should it have white look and feel like the Apple products? What actually works for your demographic is all very important. That all comes with many, many years of experience in the creative industry.
Wow. Let's talk about health there very quickly, and then I'm going to ask you the last question. So you specifically focus on serving companies, startups that are in the healthcare AI space. Tell us a bit about that. What are some of the interesting innovations and kind of clients that you're working with?
Sure. Let's see. Well, let's talk about some timely stuff. Right now it's COVID-19. A lot of us are stuck at home. Right now we create an application framework called the Clara Guardian. And Clara Guardian essentially is an application framework that enables a lot of solutions to be able to build conversational AI and intelligent video analytics solutions. So think a hospital environment where there's just too many patients coming in. The doctors and the nurses are completely overwhelmed. So what if you have these smart cameras that's AI enabled, be able to be in a room that's not invasive, and to be able to be the eyes and ears of the patients, the doctors and nurses, to be able to check in on the patient, because some of the patients are contagious, unfortunately, and think a nurse have to go into this room to be able to figure out what the patient needs, and then go back into where she's from to pick up the pain medicine, and then be able to go back into the room again. That's actually lost productivity, just going back and forth, right? But if in that room you have a microphone and a camera, be able to figure out what the patient needs right away, then the nurse only needs to make one trip, right? So technologies like that, even though we don't think about it, is actually enabled on using AI and GPUs. So that's one aspect. There are many other things related to mental health. For example, you can really use a phone that has AI algorithm behind it to be able to figure out our facial muscles and see if you are in some sort of depression or you needed to talk to someone. So mental health area actually has a lot of AI and GPUs behind it as well. Even in genomics, where you're trying to sequence your genes, that sometimes could take months, if not years, to be able to sequence the different parts of the genes for humans, right? And now with using our solution, sometimes it's hours. That actually is time saved and accelerated to be able to help us find cure. And think about drug discovery from the vaccine perspective. Honestly, we all need that vaccine in order for us to get back into the real world. So right now, based on these supercomputer, we have about 400 petaflops of supercomputing that actually have been put together for the researchers to be able to continue to sort through the different drugs to find the vaccine that's needed. So all of that is within healthcare and life sciences domain that I'm actually working very closely in. And it's very, very exciting because every single day there's just something completely different. And I'm super proud to be in the company where we are seeing such innovation happening on a daily basis.
Fantastic. It must be a very exciting place to be. My last question for you. Can you offer very concrete, practical advice, tips to parents, teachers, and school counselors on how to get kids engaged with technology to get them interested in pursuing a career such as yours?
Yes, absolutely. So for parents, I would say have an open mind. Things change very quickly in a technology world, and it's super important to help your kids to learn how to learn instead of just honing in on specific subjects. Because even in AI, we talked about software writing software. Maybe computer science skills is very important, but think about what AI could potentially do in the computer science era, where potentially AI might be able to automate some of the skill sets and have your kids learn more about the skill set that will be applicable in the next 20, 30 years moving forward. And let your kids explore what they truly, really want to do before asking them to dive super deep into a subject matter area. To the teachers, I would say more field trips in the future, no matter if it's virtual or in person, and more guest speakers from the field, more internships, and that way it will really help the students get a sense of where the trends are going and why are they studying what they're studying right now. Earlier you mentioned about creative, right? Of course, there's ways to be able to use their pencil to draw a face, but learn about how technology in the creative space can help you automatically render someone's face in sub-seconds. And what does that mean when someone who is super into art and music, right now we even have like AR be able to create music on its own, right? So what does that mean for someone who has such a passion and subject matter expert in that particular area? How can he or she be able to help out the field and advance the field in the near future? And for the school counselor, if it's possible, I would really encourage for the school counselor to ask the students to design their own majors. I was not asked a lot. I think design your own major sometimes seems to be like not a popular approach, but just from what I've seen right now, a lot of students these days are very much like set on a certain path. They feel like, okay, if I do go from A to B, if I get that A, I'm solid in life. Honestly, after you graduate, you will realize your game just started. Everything is new. There is no straight path. And even if you think you're on a straightforward path right now for the next 3 to 4 years, but what if you want to switch a career? A lot of kids coming out of college, they honestly just froze and realized, oh my God, this is not what I'm familiar with. So for a school counselor, if they could potentially build into the curriculum to help the students be comfortable with the change and dealing with the uncertainty at such an early stage, I would say it's extremely important.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. Your answers were really great and I think very helpful to the adults in kids' lives who are really influencing them. Anyway, Rene, thank you so much for this great interview. We've learned what a product manager does. We've learned what a business development lead does. And very, very, very grateful to learn more about what you do and about your company. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.